Paul raised his glass for a toast, clueless that his wife had slipped something deadly into his drink. I watched the bubbles in his champagne flute, light catching the crystal, and my stomach nodded. Everyone was smiling, laughing, clapping. A family reunion, picture perfect, right? My sister Claire, sitting next to Paul, nudged him, teasing him about his corny joke about the Cardinals. The room felt warm, the kind of cozy you get from too many people crammed around a dining table in a St. Louis suburb. The air thick with the smell of roasted turkey and my mom's overbaked pecan pie. But I couldn't shake it. This prickling on my neck, like I just walked into a horror movie and didn't know my lines. I mean, you ever get that feeling like the world's about to tilt? If I'd known what was coming, I would have grabbed that glass and smashed it. But I didn't. Not yet. Hey, if you're hooked already, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment about a time someone betrayed you. It helps keep this channel going. Now, let me take you back to how this all started. I'm Jake, by the way, 32, married to my high school sweetheart, Sarah, and working as a mechanic at a shop off I-64. Nothing fancy, just oil changes and tire rotations, but it pays the bills. Paul's my brother-in-law, married to my older sister, Claire. They've been together 10 years, the kind of couple you'd see on a Christmas card, all matching sweaters and forced grins. Claire's the glue in our family, always hosting, always checking in. Me, I'm the quiet one, watching from the sidelines, noticing things, like how Diana, Paul's wife, always had this edge, a smile that never reached her eyes. You know the type? Like she's sizing you up, waiting for you to slip. That Thanksgiving was supposed to be normal. Our parents' house in Chesterfield, same as every year. Mom's fussing over the table settings, Dad's sneaking bourbon in the garage, and Claire's trying to keep everyone from bickering. Paul and Diana showed up late. As usual, her heels clicking on the hardwood like she owned the place. She's a paralegal, always dressed like she's headed to court. Not a family dinner. Paul, though, he's a teddy bear, big laugh, bigger heart, works as a high school history teacher. Loves Claire like she's his sister, too. They'd been tight since college, always swapping inside jokes, finishing each other's sentences. I never thought much of it, until I saw Diana's face that day. She was watching them, Paul and Claire, from across the room. Her lips were tight, eyes narrowed, like she was chewing on something bitter. I caught it because I was grabbing another beer from the kitchen, and there she was, leaning against the counter, stirring her drink with this intensity, like she was plotting. I brushed it off. God, why did I brush it off? Families are messy, right? You've got your grudges, your little jealousies. No big deal. But then I saw her hand move. Quick, subtle, like a magician's trick. She reached into her purse, pulled out a tiny vial, and tipped it into Paul's glass while he was distracted, laughing with Claire. My heart stopped. Stopped. Like someone had yanked the plug on my whole damn body. I froze, beer bottle sweating in my hand. Did I just see that? No way. No way Diana, perfect, poised Diana, would do something like that. My mind spun, trying to make sense of it. Maybe it was sugar syrup, some weird health thing? But the way she glanced around, eyes darting like a fox in a henhouse. No, this was wrong. I wanted to shout, to knock the glass out of Paul's hand, but my feet were glued to the floor. You ever feel that? When your body just betrays you? I stood there, useless, as Paul raised his glass, grinning like an idiot, ready to toast to family, to love, to all that crap we pretend to believe in. 3 days earlier, everything had seemed fine. Well, fine-ish. Sarah and I were over at Claire and Paul's place for game night. It's this thing we do, board games, cheap wine, arguing over who cheated at Scrabble. Diana was there, quiet as usual, sipping her Pinot and scrolling her phone. I noticed she kept glancing at Paul and Claire, who were teamed up, laughing over some dumb clue in Pictionary. You two are disgusting, Diana said, half joking, half not. Claire laughed it off, but I saw Paul's face tighten, just for a second. Like he knew something was off but didn't want to poke the bear. Later, when Sarah and I were driving home, she said, Diana's been weird lately, like, possessive. You think she's jealous of Claire? I shrugged. Nah, they're just close. Always have been. But Sarah's words stuck. like a splinter you can't quite dig out. Back to that dinner. Paul's glass was still in the air, and my pulse was hammering in my ears. I couldn't just stand there. "Paul, wait," I blurted, louder than I meant to. Every head turned. Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. Claire's eyes went wide. Diana, her face was a mask, but her fingers twitched, just enough to betray her. "What's up, Jake?" Paul asked, still holding that damn glass. I scrambled for an excuse. Your drink. It's got a bug in it." "Look." Lame, I know, but it was all I had. Paul squinted at the glass, confused, then set it down. "Huh. Don't see anything." I lunged forward, grabbed it, and spilled it accidentally on the tablecloth. Mom gasped. Diana's eyes burned into me, and I swear, if looks could kill, I'd be 6 feet under. I mumbled some apology, heart racing, and bolted to the kitchen with the glass. My hands were shaking as I dumped the champagne down the sink. Was I crazy? Had I imagined it? But that vial, that look, she'd done something. I didn't know what, but I wasn't about to let Paul drink it. I stood there, gripping the counter, the smell of dish soap mixing with my panic. What the hell was in that drink? And why would Diana, of all people, do this? I thought of her watching Paul and Claire, that bitter edge in her eyes. Was this about jealousy? Some twisted revenge? My mind flashed to every true crime podcast I'd ever heard, and I felt sick. When I came back to the dining room, Diana was gone. "Bathroom," Claire said, rolling her eyes. But I knew better. I slipped out to the hallway, heart pounding, and caught her slipping out the front door. "Diana!" I called louder than I meant to. She froze, her hand on the doorknob, and turned slowly. Her face was calm, too calm, like a lake hiding a current. "What's wrong, Jake?" she asked, voice smooth as glass. I wanted to scream, "What did you put in his drink?" But I didn't. I just stood there, staring, my mouth dry. "You okay?" she pressed, tilting her head, like she was daring me to say it. I didn't know what to do. Call her out? Tell Paul? Ruin the whole damn night? I mean, what do you even say? Asterisk, hey, your wife might have just tried to poison you, asterisk? I let her walk back inside, my mind a mess. But I knew one thing. I wasn't letting Paul out of my sight. Not tonight. Not until I figured out what the hell was going on. And trust me, what I found out later, it was worse than I ever could have imagined. I stood in the hallway, the cold November air sneaking through the front door Diana had just slipped back inside from. My hands were still trembling. The image of that vial burned into my brain. I could hear the clatter of dishes from the dining room, Mom's voice calling for more mashed potatoes, like nothing had happened, like the world hadn't just cracked open. You ever try to act normal when your head's screaming? It's like trying to hold water in your hands. It just keeps slipping through. I took a deep breath, the kind you take before jumping into a freezing pool, and walked back in. Paul was wiping the spilled champagne off the tablecloth, laughing it off. "Jake, man, you're a klutz tonight." Claire smirked, tossing him a napkin. "Yeah, what's got you so jumpy?" I forced a grin, my face feeling like plastic. Just, too much coffee, I guess." Diana was back in her seat, sipping her own drink, her eyes flicking to me for a split second. It was quick, but I caught it. That glint, like a blade catching light. She knew I knew, and that scared me more than anything. I sat down, my plate of turkey and gravy untouched, my appetite gone. My mind was racing, replaying that moment in the kitchen. The vial, the way her fingers moved, so precise, so practiced. I wanted to believe I was wrong, that I'd misread it. Maybe it was nothing, right? Just my imagination running wild. Like when you hear a creak in the house at night and swear it's a burglar. But deep down, I knew. You know that feeling in your gut when it's not just a hunch anymore. It's truth, heavy as a brick, sitting right there. I kept stealing glances at Diana. She was chatting with Mom about some recipe, her voice light, her smile perfect. Too perfect, like she'd rehearsed it. I thought back to the past few months, trying to piece it together. Had there been signs? Little things I'd ignored? Like how she'd been short with Claire lately, cutting her off mid-sentence. Or how she'd started hovering over Paul, always checking his phone when he left the room. I chalked it up to stress. Her law firm was brutal, long hours, demanding bosses. But now it felt like I'd been blind. "Hey Jake, you good?" Sarah's voice snapped me out of it. She was next to me, her hand on my arm, her hazel eyes searching mine. God, I love her eyes. Always have. I nodded, but it was a lie. How do you tell your wife at a family dinner that you think your brother-in-law's wife is up to something awful? Sarah squeezed my arm, her way of saying she wasn't buying it, but she let it go. For now. The night dragged on. Pie was served, coffee was poured, and Paul, bless his oblivious heart, kept the table laughing with stories about his students' terrible history essays. But I couldn't focus. Every time Diana moved, I flinched, like she might pull another vial out of nowhere. I kept my eyes on Paul's new glass, water this time, thank God. I'd made sure of that, practically wrestling the pitcher from Mom to pour it myself. Paranoid? Maybe, but better paranoid than whatever the alternative was. Later, when the dishes were cleared and people were milling around, I pulled Claire aside. The living room was dim, just the glow of Mom's old lamps and the flicker of the TV playing some football game nobody was watching. "Hey!" I whispered, keeping my voice low. "You notice anything weird with Diana tonight?" Claire frowned, brushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "Weird how? She's always a bit intense." I hesitated. How do you say this without sounding insane? I saw her mess with Paul's drink. Her eyes widened, but then she laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. What, like she spiked it with hot sauce or something? I shook my head, my throat tight. "No, Claire. Like, something bad." She stopped laughing. Her face went pale, and for a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition. "Jake, that's crazy. Diana wouldn't." She cut herself off, glancing toward the kitchen where Diana was helping Mom wrap leftovers. "Would she?" Her voice was small now, like she was asking herself as much as me. I didn't have an answer, but I saw it, that doubt creeping in, like a shadow you can't shake. Claire and Paul had always been close, like two peas in a pod since they met at Mizzou. Study buddies turned best friends turned family. Diana had never seemed to mind, or at least, she'd never said anything. But now I was replaying every moment I could remember. The way she'd stiffen when Paul and Claire hugged. The snarky comments she'd make about their little inside jokes. Was it jealousy? Something darker? I mean, you hear about stuff like this on podcasts. Spouses losing it over nothing, turning love into something twisted. But this was real. This was us. I didn't sleep that night. Sarah and I got home around 11, the streetlights casting long shadows on our driveway. She went to bed, but I sat on the couch, a warm Bud Light in my hand, staring at the wall. My phone buzzed. Claire. A text. "You sure about what you saw?" I typed back. Asterisk, yeah, I'm sure. Asterisk, no response. I could picture her, sitting up in bed, chewing her lip like she does when she's stressed. I wanted to call her to hash it out, but what would I say? "Hey, your sister-in-law might be a psycho?" Instead, I Googled poison in drink symptoms. Dumb, I know, but I was desperate. Nausea, dizziness, heart palpitations. Great. Half of those could be from Mom's cooking. The next morning, I drove to Paul and Diana's place. I hadn't planned it, not really. It was like my truck just took me there. They live in a tidy little ranch house in Baldwin, the kind with a manicured lawn and a mailbox shaped like a lighthouse. Paul's pride and joy. I sat in my truck for 10 minutes, engine off, watching the house. No movement, just the neighbor's dog barking and the hum of a leaf blower down the street. Finally, I got out, my boots crunching on the gravel. I didn't know what I was looking for. Answers, maybe. Proof I wasn't losing it. Paul answered the door, still in his flannel pajama pants. Hair a mess. "Jake? What's up, man? You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a laugh, my mouth dry as sand. "Just, checking in. You feeling okay?" He frowned, scratching his neck. "Yeah, fine. Why?" I shrugged, my eyes darting past him into the house. No sign of Diana. Just, after last night. The spill. He grinned, clueless as ever. Dude, you gotta chill. It's just a tablecloth. I nodded, but my chest was tight. If only he knew. I left without saying anything else, my mind a tangle of what-ifs. What if I'd let him drink it? What if I was wrong? What if I wasn't? Back in my truck, I noticed something. A scrap of paper tucked under my wiper. I grabbed it, my hands clumsy. It was a note, handwritten, the ink smudged from the morning dew. Mind your own business, Jake. My blood ran cold. I looked around, half expecting Diana to be standing there, watching. Nothing. Just the quiet street, the dog still barking. I crumpled the note, my knuckles white. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was real. I sat in my truck, the crumpled note still clenched in my fist, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The words, asterisk mind your own business, Jake asterisk, stared back at me mocking. I kept glancing at Paul and Diana's house, that lighthouse mailbox gleaming like it was laughing at me too. Who leaves a note like that? Diana? Someone else? My mind was a mess, spinning through every possibility, every bad movie plot I'd ever seen. You ever get that feeling, like you're holding a grenade and the pin's already pulled? I wanted to march back inside, shove the note in Paul's face, and demand answers. But what if I was wrong? What if I blew up their marriage over nothing? I stuffed the note in my pocket and drove off, the hum of my truck's engine doing nothing to drown out my thoughts. Back at the shop that afternoon, I was useless. Wrenches slipped from my hands, oil stains bloomed on my jeans, and all I could think about was that damn vial. I kept picturing Diana's face, that calm, calculated look as she tipped it into Paul's glass. I mean, who does that? I'd always thought she was intense, sure. But this was next level. I tried to focus on a busted alternator, but my hands were shaking, and my boss, Mike, noticed. Jake, you hung over or what? He grunted, wiping grease off his hands. I mumbled something about not sleeping well, but he just snorted and walked off. God, I wished it was just a hangover. By 5, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted Claire. Asterisk, we need to talk. Now. Asterisk, she replied instantly. Asterisk, meet me at the Grind. 6 p.m. Asterisk, the Grind's this little coffee shop off Manchester Road. All exposed brick and overpriced lattes, the kind of place Claire loves and I tolerate. I got there early, grabbed a corner table, and sat with a black coffee that tasted like burnt regret. The place smelled like cinnamon and hipster dreams, the kind of vibe that usually makes me roll my eyes. But tonight, I barely noticed. I kept checking the door, half expecting Diana to walk in, that vial still in her hand. Claire showed up right on time, her face pale, her usual bounce gone. She slid into the seat across from me, clutching a to-go cup like it was a lifeline. Okay, Jake, she said, voice low. Tell me everything. So I did. The vial, the way Diana's eyes darted, the note on my windshield. Her face changed with every word. Shock, then disbelief, then something harder, like steel forming. You're sure it wasn't like a mistake? She asked, but her voice wobbled. I shook my head. Claire, I know what I saw. And that note? Someone's trying to scare me off. She leaned back, staring at her coffee like it held answers. This is insane. Diana's always been controlling. But this. She trailed off, her fingers picking at the cup's lid. We sat in silence for a minute, the chatter of the coffee shop fading into a dull hum. I could see her mind working, replaying years of memories, looking for clues we'd missed. She's been weird about Paul lately, Claire admitted finally. Like possessive. Last month, she flipped out because he gave me a ride home from Mom's. Said I was stealing his time. I laughed it off, but... She stopped, her eyes meeting mine. You think she's jealous? Of me? I shrugged, my stomach twisting. Maybe. But jealousy doesn't explain whatever that was in his drink. Claire's phone buzzed, and she flinched. She glanced at it, then shoved it in her purse. It's Paul, she muttered. He's asking where I am. I leaned forward. Don't tell him. Not yet. She nodded, but I could see the conflict in her eyes. Loyalty to Paul, fear of Diana, and now this new weight, this doubt about someone she'd known for years. You ever have to keep a secret that feels like it's burning a hole in you? That's where we were, stuck between truth and family, with no clear way out. We decided to dig deeper, but quietly. No confronting Diana, not yet. I'd watch her, see if she slipped up again. Claire would talk to Paul, feel him out without tipping him off. "He's gonna think we're crazy," she said, half laughing, half crying. I reached across the table, squeezed her hand. "We're not crazy. We're protecting him." She nodded, but her eyes were glassy, like she was holding back a flood. The next few days were torture. I went to work, came home, acted normal with Sarah, but my head was somewhere else. Every creak of the house, every shadow outside, had me jumping. I kept the note in my glove box, checking it like it might change, like it might confess something new. Sarah noticed, of course. "You're acting weird," she said one night, standing in our kitchen, her arms crossed. "What's going on, Jake?" I wanted to tell her. God, I did. But how do you explain this without sounding like a nutcase? "Just work stress." I lied, hating myself for it. Her eyes narrowed, but she let it slide, turning back to the dishes with a sigh that cut deeper than any words. Then, Friday night, Claire called me, her voice shaking. "Jake, you need to come over. Now." I was already grabbing my keys, my heart in my throat. "What happened?" I asked, but she was already crying. "Just hurry." I broke every speed limit getting to her place, a duplex in Kirkwood with fairy lights on the porch. When I got there, Claire was outside, pacing, her breath fogging in the cold. "It's Paul," she said, her voice breaking. "He's sick. Like, really sick." My stomach dropped. "Sick how?" She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Nausea, dizzy," says, his heart's racing. "Jake, what if she did it again?" I pushed past her, into the house. Paul was on the couch, pale as a sheet, a glass of water trembling in his hand. "Hey man," he said weakly, trying to smile. "What's with the cavalry?" I ignored him, scanning the room. "No Diana." "Where is she?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Paul frowned. "Work. Late night at the firm." I exchanged a look with Claire. "Yeah, right." I knelt in front of Paul, trying to keep my voice steady. "What did you eat today?" "Drink." He shrugged, wincing. "Just coffee this morning. Leftovers from Thanksgiving." "Why?" I didn't answer, my mind racing. Leftovers. Coffee. Diana had been in that kitchen. Had she? I pulled Claire into the hallway. "We need to get him to a doctor," I whispered. "Like now." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "But what do we tell him?" "He doesn't know." I didn't have an answer, just this burning need to keep him safe. We got Paul into my truck, told him it was probably food poisoning, anything to avoid the truth. He was groggy, confused, but he trusted us. At the ER, the doctor ran tests, asked questions. I kept my mouth shut, but my hands were sweating, my mind screaming. What if it's too late? The ER waiting room smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee, the kind of place where time drags like a bad dream. Claire and I sat there, side by side, our knees bouncing, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Paul was in the back, hooked up to monitors while the doctors tried to figure out what was wrong. My mind was a tornado, every worst-case scenario flashing like a neon sign. What if Diana had slipped something into his coffee? His leftovers? What if we'd been too slow? You ever sit in a hospital watching that clock tick, knowing every second could change everything? It's like your whole life's on pause, and you're just waiting for the crash. Claire kept twisting her scarf in her hands, her knuckles white. "Jake," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of the waiting room TV. "What if we're wrong? What if this is just, I don't know, bad turkey or something?" I wanted to believe her, to grab onto that lifeline and pretend this was all a misunderstanding. But that note, asterisk mind your own business, Jake asterisk, kept burning a hole in my pocket. I pulled it out, handed it to her. Her eyes scanned the smudged ink, and her face crumpled. This is her handwriting, she said, her voice cracking. I've seen it on Christmas cards, grocery lists. It's hers. My stomach lurched. Confirmation. Not just a hunch anymore. We didn't say much after that. What was there to say? Our sister-in-law, the woman who'd sat at our family dinners for a decade, might have tried to hurt Paul. Maybe worse. I kept replaying that moment in the kitchen, her quick fingers, that vial. I'd been so close to letting it slide, to convincing myself I was paranoid. But now Paul was lying in a hospital bed, and I couldn't shake the guilt. If I'd spoken up sooner, confronted her right then, would we be here? You know that feeling when you realize you might have screwed up something big, and there's no going back? The doctor finally came out, a tired-looking guy with glasses too big for his face. He's stable, he said, and Claire let out a sob, her hand grabbing mine. Looks like some kind of toxin, but we're still running tests. Could be food-related, could be something else. He's lucky you brought him in when you did. Lucky. The word felt like a slap. I wanted to scream it wasn't luck, it was his wife. But I didn't. I just nodded, my throat tight, while Claire asked a million questions about blood work and recovery times. The doctor didn't have answers yet, just a vague promise to keep us posted. As he walked away, I felt Claire's grip tighten. Jake, she whispered. We have to tell him. I knew she was right, but the thought made my skin crawl. Tell Paul his wife might have poisoned him? How do you even start that conversation? Hey man, your high school sweetheart might be trying to kill you? He'd laugh it off or worse, hate us for it. Paul loved Diana, flaws and all. He'd always defended her. Her long hours, her sharp edges, her need to control everything. But love blinds you, doesn't it? I'd seen it before in my shop with buddies who stayed with partners who drained them dry. Love's not just a feeling, it's a trap sometimes. We went back to Claire's place after the hospital, Paul still under observation. The duplex was quiet, the fairy lights on the porch flickering like they were tired too. Claire made coffee, but neither of us drank it. We just sat at her kitchen table, the same one where we'd played Scrabble a week ago, laughing like nothing could touch us. Now it felt like a crime scene. I went through her stuff, Claire said suddenly, her voice low, like she was confessing a sin. My head snapped up. What? She looked away, her cheeks red. Last night, after you texted, I went to their house. Paul was at a teacher's conference and Diana was at work. I used the spare key. I stared at her, my heart pounding. Claire, what the hell? You broke in. She flinched but didn't back down. I had to know, Jake. I found stuff in her desk. She pulled out her phone, showed me photos. A small glass bottle, half empty, tucked in a drawer with pens and sticky notes. A receipt from a pharmacy in St. Charles, dated 2 weeks ago. And a notebook, pages filled with Diana's neat handwriting. Lists of times, dates, what Paul ate, drank. Like she was tracking him. My mouth went dry. What is this? I asked even though I knew. Claire's eyes were hard now, no tears left. It's evidence. We decided to confront Diana. No more waiting, no more sneaking around. But first, we needed Paul to know. The next morning, we went back to the hospital. He was sitting up, looking better, a little color back in his face. You two look like you're planning a heist, he joked. But his smile faded when he saw our faces. Claire took a deep breath, her hands shaking. Paul, we need to talk about Diana. His brow furrowed, and I could see the walls going up. What about her? He asked, his voice tight. I let Claire take the lead. She was closer to him, always had been. She told him everything. The vial, the note, the hospital, the stuff she found. I watched his face shift. Confusion, then anger, then something like betrayal, sharp and raw. You're serious? He said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. You think she, poisoned me? Claire reached for his hand, but he pulled away. That's insane. Diana's not perfect, but she's not. She wouldn't. He trailed off, his eyes darting between us, searching for a way out of this nightmare. I pulled out the note, slid it across the hospital tray. This was on my truck, Paul. It's her handwriting. He stared at it, his jaw tight, and for a second, I thought he might crumple it like I had. Instead, he folded it carefully, like it was something fragile. I need to talk to her, he said, his voice flat. Alone. Claire started to protest, but I put a hand on her arm. Let him, I said, even though every instinct screamed to stop him. We left the hospital, the weight of it all crushing us. Back in my truck, Claire was crying again. What if he doesn't believe us? What if she talks her way out of it? I didn't have an answer, just a sinking feeling that we were about to lose him. Not to poison, but to denial. You ever watch someone you love walk into a trap, knowing you can't stop them? That's where we were, stuck on the edge of something we couldn't control. That night, Paul called us to their house. Claire and I showed up, braced for a fight. Diana was there, sitting on their couch, her hands folded in her lap like she was at a deposition. Paul stood by the fireplace, his face unreadable. Tell them, he said to her, his voice low, like he was holding back a storm. Diana looked at us, her eyes cold but steady. It wasn't poison, she said, and my heart stopped. It was a sedative. I wanted to scare him, not hurt him. My jaw dropped. Claire's hand gripped mine so hard it hurt. Scare him, I repeated, my voice shaking. Why? Her lips tightened, and for the first time, I saw a crack in her armor. Shame, maybe, or regret. I thought he was too close to Claire, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I thought, I don't know, that he'd leave me. I wanted him to feel off, to stay home, to need me. It was jealousy, raw and ugly, twisted into something dangerous. Paul's face was stone, but his eyes were wet. You could have killed me, he said, and the room went quiet, the weight of those words suffocating us all. The silence in that living room was deafening, like the air itself was holding its breath. Diana's confession hung there, raw and jagged, cutting through everything we thought we knew. Paul stood by the fireplace, his shoulders hunched, like he was carrying a weight he couldn't put down. Claire's grip on my hand was so tight I could feel her pulse, fast and frantic. Me? I was frozen, my mind stuck on Diana's words. Asterisk, I wanted to scare him, not hurt him. Asterisk, scare him? With a sedative? In his champagne? It sounded like a bad lie, the kind you tell when you're caught and scrambling. You ever hear someone say something so wild you don't know whether to laugh or scream? That's where I was, teetering on the edge of both. Paul finally moved, running a hand through his hair, his eyes fixed on Diana. Why didn't you just talk to me? His voice cracked, not loud, but sharp, like glass breaking. 10 years, D. 10 years, and you think I'm what? Cheating with Claire. He laughed, but it was hollow, bitter, the kind of sound that makes your chest ache. Diana flinched, her hands twisting in her lap. It wasn't like that, she said, her voice small, almost childlike. I saw you two always laughing, always so close, and I felt invisible. Invisible. The word hit me like a punch. I glanced at Claire, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. Invisible? Diana, with her perfect outfits and sharp wit, felt like that? Claire let go of my hand, stepping forward. You thought I was a threat? Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt underneath, like a bruise forming. I'm his sister, Diana. His family. You think I'd what? Take him from you? Diana's eyes flicked up, and for a second, I saw something raw, shame, maybe, or regret. But then her face hardened again, that lawyer mask slipping back into place. You don't get it, she said, her voice sharper now. You're always there, Claire. Always. The inside jokes, the late-night calls, the way he lights up when you're around. I'm his wife, but I'm second. I wanted to yell, to tell her she was wrong, that she'd twisted everything in her head. But Paul spoke first, his voice low, dangerous. So you put something in my drink. To scare me. To make me need you. He shook his head, like he was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Do you know how insane that sounds? Diana's lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked small, like the weight of her own choices was crushing her. You ever see someone realize they've broken something they can't fix? It's not satisfying. It's just sad. I cleared my throat, my voice rough. What was in the vial, Diana? And don't lie. She hesitated, her eyes darting to Paul, then back to me. It was lorazepam, from a prescription. I got it for anxiety, but I used it. Lorazepam. I didn't know much about drugs, but I knew that wasn't something you just tossed into a drink for fun. And the other times? I pressed, thinking of Paul's symptoms, the hospital. Her eyes widened, just for a second, but it was enough. There weren't other times, she said quickly. Too quickly. Claire's breath hitched, and I knew she caught it too. Diana was lying, or at least not telling the whole truth. Paul sank into a chair, his face in his hands. I trusted you, he said. So quiet I almost missed it. Every day, I trusted you. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in with every word. I wanted to do something, say something. But what? This wasn't my marriage, my fight. But it was my family, and that made it my mess too. Claire stepped closer to Paul, her hand hovering over his shoulder, like she wasn't sure if she should touch him. We're here, Paul, she said softly. We've got you. He didn't look up, but his shoulders shook, and I knew he was crying. Diana stood, her movements stiff, like she was trying to hold herself together. I'll go, she said, her voice flat. I'll stay at a hotel. Give you space. Paul didn't respond, didn't even look at her. She grabbed her purse, her heels clicking on the hardwood as she walked out. The front door closed with a soft thud, and it felt like the end of something, maybe everything. I looked at Paul, his face still buried in his hands, and Claire, her eyes red but fierce, like she was ready to fight the world for him. And me? I felt like I'd been hit by a truck, my head spinning with questions I didn't want answers to. The next few weeks were a blur. Paul stayed with Claire, sleeping on her couch, while Diana checked into a Marriott downtown. He didn't file for divorce, not yet, but he wasn't talking to her either. Claire and I took turns checking on him, making sure he ate, showered, got to work. He was like a ghost of himself, his big laugh gone, his eyes dull. The doctors confirmed the sedative in his system, but no permanent damage. Physically, at least. Emotionally, that was another story. You ever see someone try to rebuild trust after it's been shattered? It's like trying to glue a broken vase back together. Every crack's still there, no matter how careful you are. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Diana to call, to explain, to beg. But she didn't. Just silence. Until one day, I found another note under my wiper. Same handwriting, same smudged ink. I'm sorry, Jake. That was it. No explanation, no excuses. I showed it to Claire, and she shook her head. She's trying to make it right, she said, but her voice was hard. Too late for that. I didn't know if I agreed. Part of me wanted to believe Diana's jealousy had just spiraled, that she wasn't a monster, just broken. But another part of me couldn't forget that vial, that calculated move in the kitchen. Trust, once it's gone, doesn't come back easy. Paul decided to give her a chance. Not to move back in, but to talk. Therapy, he said. Couples counseling. I don't know if I can forgive her, he told me one night, sitting in my garage with a beer he wasn't drinking. But I have to try. For me, not her. I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't know if he was brave or crazy, but I admired him for it. Claire wasn't so sure. He's too good for her, she said later, her voice sharp. She doesn't deserve him. Maybe she was right. But love's messy like that, isn't it? It doesn't always make sense. Looking back, that Thanksgiving changed us all. I'm more careful now, watching people's hands, their eyes, the things they don't say. Claire's tougher, less trusting, but she's still Paul's rock. And Paul? He's healing slowly, but the cracks are still there. As for Diana, she's still in therapy with him, trying to rebuild what she broke. I don't know if they'll make it, but I know one thing. Family's not just about love. It's about the choices you make when trust is on the line. And sometimes those choices leave scars that never fade. If the story hit you in the gut, drop a comment with your own tale of family drama or second chances. Hit subscribe to catch more stories like this. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's next.